Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we will bind and integrate everything within the main section of our application. The authentication feature, wishlist, and settings and products feature that we have implemented before. So without further ado, let's jump right in. First of all, we have to add those features to the Pocket Goods configuration file of our project, more specifically under the framework libraries. Click on plus, add basically the authentication feature, as well as core app, core UI, product feature, settings feature, and wishlist feature, and hit add. Now we have everything here. Inside Pocket Goods, I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna call it main, just to organize a little bit this particular section and to make it more explicit as a main section of our app. First of all, I'm going to move this particular file, Pocket Goods, which is the main application. And we don't need actually this view. I'm gonna delete it. And let's add initially here just a spacer. This is a clean section. If you do remember, under Jetpack Compose application, we have done this splash screen. I'm going to proceed again with the same manner. Let's create here this splash screen. I'm going to create a new folder. Let's call it splash screen. The splash screen that we will use is going to be based on the storyboard. Right click on splash screen folder, new file from template, and choose storyboard. Hit next, the splash screen folder. You can name it as splash screen if you will, and hit create. For the splash screen, I'm going just to put here our logo. We're going to set the background for this particular section from the background that we have specified before under the splash screen background color. Make sure to choose this one. Next, a view basically to serve a purpose of putting the entire image within the safe area of the device. And double click, fill the maximum of the screen. Click on the view here and add a constraint. For the constraint, I'm gonna add here 0, 0 to make sure that it's going to occupy and fill the safe area, and hit add for constraints. Now I would like to place here the image that I'm going to use in this particular tutorial. Click on this plus icon, image view, place it here. It has to be at the center of the screen, and to do so, click on image, click on this icon to place it horizontally at the center and vertically at the center, and add two constraints. And let's add the default width 173 and hit add two constraints. Now let's choose the image to be displayed. Under image, the full logo. And for the background of this particular view, it has to be transparent. Add clear color. I think that's pretty much it. It's been centered at the center of the screen, and this is the desired splash screen. Using storyboard for splash screen is more than enough for most cases. However, in our application, we want to make sure to show the home screen till we are done loading the credentials of the user and loading basically the settings of our application. In essence, we're going to create a view that's going to resemble splash screen storyboard that we have done right now, and the user is not going to notice the transition between the storyboard and the view because it's going to be similar 100%. The transition from the storyboard to the splash screen view that we're going to build right now, it's going to be a seamless transition. Next, before moving forward, I would like to add here the splash screen to the configuration. Launch screen, it has to be splash screen storyboard. Now it's giving us a warning here. We have to check on this is initial view controller. Try to add the Pocket Goods UI test to the target membership. As I said before, going to add a view file that's going to represent the same thing that we have done under this splash screen. Let's add new file from template. I'm gonna call it splash screen. Hit create. Gonna put everything within a Z stack, and the image that we're going to use is full logo. Provide here the bundle and resizable, scale to fit. And for the frame of this, let's do the same thing that we have done earlier. 173, and for the height 136. Let's add an accessibility identifier, and for the entire frame of this splash screen, it has to occupy the max width and the max height to place the image on the center. That's why we have basically wrapped everything within a Z-stack. As a background, from the splash theme and background, we have to ignore safe area. I think it's good. That's what we want. Now we are done basically with the splash screen. Next thing that we have to do is to focus on the main view model that's going to orchestrate basically loading the data and setting the theme and whatnot, and all the events and the states that we have defined under the Jetpack Compose application. And again, we're going just to do the same thing that we have done earlier under the previous application. Inside this main section, I'm going to add the main view model, and we need the states as well as the events. Let's call here the state pocket goods app state. From the previous application, we can infer the states, the loading indicator for the page, and whether we are in dark theme or light theme. And we have to control the visibility of the splash screen, and we have to access the latest destination. In this particular application, we're going to load by default the latest visited screen. Add the initializer, and I would like to implement the copy function. The principle of creating the copy function is very easy. You have to provide nullable values, and if it's null, we're going to assign those from the copy function, otherwise from the states of the pocket goods application states. Now let's define the events that should be triggered and handled and implemented internally in the main view model. Pocket goods app events. The first event, which is on load data. Basically, we're going to check if we have an authenticated user. After that, we need to set the authenticated user once obtaining the authenticated user, and another event for to switch back and forth theme from dark to light, and another event to set the current destination, and another event to toggle the product in wishlist on and off. And that's all for the definition of pocket goods app events. Under the main view model, we have to specify here the states. Let's add here some default values for this initializer. The default destination should be the home screen. Now let's come back to the main view model. We need here the auth use cases, the settings use cases, as well as wishlist use cases. And because we are going to deal with publishers, we need the set of any cancelable. And let's provide here the initializer. For the record, this main view model is internal as well as the initializer. First thing that we have to do here under this particular section is to stream the application settings, dark theme, and the latest visited route. Let's make it as a private function, stream app settings. We are not interested in the result, therefore going to use here try, and settings use case get application settings, which is a stream of data, and we have to observe the changes. In this particular section, if we have an error, we're going to set a default or a fallback values for the is dark theme and for the latest visited route. And we're going to access basically the state, therefore we have to use here weak self, and because it's nullable, if it's null, we're going to make an early return, case failure. If we have an error, going just to do a fallback values for the is dark theme, false, latest visited destination or screen, it is home screen. All right. Now we have some values. We can do here state and copy. And we have to add here the weak self, dark theme from the application settings. And because it's null, we have to use here the null safety operator. Otherwise, as a fallback, false. And for the latest visited destination or screen, it has to be from destination, and we have provided actually an initializer for this, a convenient initializer. Not from, but it has to be the raw value. And the raw value, basically, it is a string, app settings, latest route, which is a string, nullable string. If it's null, we're going to do here destination and home screen and the raw value. Next, we're going to store cancellables under cancellables. In the initializer, we have to stream the app settings to keep track and to reflect in real time the changes of the latest visited screen as well as the dark theme or light theme. Now, as usual, we need to implement those events, the events that we have defined under Pocket Goods app. Let's create here a function on event that's going to handle this. Next, we have to create those private functions. Let's start with onSetCurrentDestination. We need to set the current destination in two places, basically, under the states of Pocket Goods app states, as well as the database. Therefore, we're going to access the settings use case. We have to change the state of latest visited screen from the parameter onSetCurrentDestination. And we have to save afterward the data or the new destination to the database by doing try and settings use cases, save application settings, and we have to provide here the app settings. For its dark mode, it's going to be from the old state is dark mode or dark theme. And for the latest route, which is basically destination, from the parameter and raw value. Like this, we're going to keep track of the latest visited screen, and in the same time, we're going to save this data to the database. Let's implement the function auth-check. This function is going to check for us if the user is still authenticated or not. First of all, we have to make sure that we have the instance of the auth use cases. Afterward, we have to call the use case getAuthenticated_user. We have to receive on the dispatch or the main dispatch queue and sync. In case if we have an error, we need to clear the cache and call the function on unauthenticated. If we have a valid user or some valid resource to serve, in this particular case, we are interested only in case of an error. We can do, instead of switch, if case we are not interested in the data as well as the error. If we have an error again, we have to clear the cached user and call the unauthenticated underneath store under consoles. Let's implement the other function onLoad data. We need the auth use cases. At first, whenever we are loading the data, we need to show basically the splash screen. Therefore, I'm going to change the state is splash screen visible to true. Next, we're going to load the data as we have done earlier by calling the use case getAuthenticated_user. And we have to call here sync. I'm going to copy this failure section because if we don't have an authenticated user, we have basically to clear the data. I'm going to surround this block with task. And as usual, I'm going to clear the data as we have done here. Let's add here underneath store under consoles and call on error. And we have to set the visibility of the splash screen to false. In other words, we're going to hide the splash screen, more specifically the Swift file, not the storyboard, by doing state and copy. And basically we need the self reference. Therefore, let's mark this with weak self. And let's add here the guard statement is splash screen visible to false. All right. In case of the GWT token is correct and able to authenticate the user, we have to get or to refresh the data. Case success state. In this particular case, we're going to call the callback function on success, passing the user and making changes to the state, more specifically the splash screen from true to false. We need to access the weak self, guard, else early return. In case if we have an error, clear the cache, call on error, and set is splash screen visible to false. As a default case, nothing to be done here. Let's implement the function set dark theme. With the same manner, we're going to update the state. In this case, we're not going to reflect anything to the UI. The UI is going to use the data that's going to be streamed from the database, not from the internal state of Pocket Goods app state. Let's check first of all if we have the use cases. In this case, we're going to call use cases and save application settings, app settings is dark mode from the parameter. One last function to implement, which is to toggle the product on and off from the wishlist. We need the use cases, wishlist use cases, and let's store this results under inserted wishlist item ID. And because nullable, we're going to do this equal try under Jetpack compose or Kotlin run catching, if you do remember. And here I'm going to do await wishlist use cases and toggle wishlist. Provide here the user ID from the parameter and product ID from the parameter. If the inserted wishlist item ID equal -1, switch statement. In case of -1, we have to call onRemoved, and for the default case, it has to be onAdded. And we are done implementing the main view model. At this particular stage, you can run or implement for the main view model an integration test, but we're not going to do so. We have to focus on other aspects of our main section. We're going to do the integration test at the part of the end-to-end test. In the video or the section for our end-to-end test, we're going to implement first of all the integration test for main view model. Then we're going to build the robot class with robot pattern. I think that I'm going to stop here for this particular video. For the next video, I'm going to implement the layout and the routing for our application, as well as the dependency injection mechanism. And we're going to use everything inside the Pocket Goods application. I hope you have learned something new. See you in the next one, and happy coding.